All right, the time is 4:30 and we will call the meeting of the Board of Commissioners for Skagit PUD to order. It is August 2nd, 2023. Ask that you join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I
pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, same crew, different night of the week, but we will get through it here. Motion to approve the consent agenda items 1 through 3.
So moved.
Second.
Motion is second, all in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Consent agenda is adopted. At this time, any members of the public that want to speak, if you want to, well, there's nobody in the room, I don't believe, so. Let's look at Zoom. If you're on Zoom and wishing to speak, use the raise your hand function. And seeing nobody there, we will go right into the general manager's report. George.
All right, thank you, Commissioner. Good afternoon, everyone. I will keep this brief. The reason the meeting was scheduled so that Brian can get to his items, so we want to make sure we have time for that. Update on just a couple of items. State auditors are still continuing their work on the accountability audit. And we're hoping they get done in the next 2 weeks, because then after that, Brian will be away. So we're pushing to have them finish up their work before then. I saw some emails coming through about tours and meetings and stuff. So the elected officials tours that we put the notice out for August 10th and 17th for elected officials. So we narrowed that down and it's just going to happen on the 10th at 1 p.m. We've got 4 people that are signed up to come, one from every agency, right? Like one from Burlington, one from Woolley, one from Mount Vernon, and one county commissioner. So more details to come as far as where we're going to do it and all that, but it's at 1 o'clock. We're planning to start. So if you have the afternoon free, or if you don't have it free, let me know.
I'm
The 10th.
driving back that day, so.
Okay, so you won't be there. All right. And then you recently saw an invitation for groundbreaking for our new building. That's planned for the 15th at 3 p.m. And I got confirmation from all 3 of you. So we'll notice that the meeting. And then Commissioner Linkos asked about this, but the final portion of the transmission line was installed under College Way. So we've got all the pipe in the ground, just need to do the final touches and get the paving done. That'll hopefully happen in the next month or so. That is all that I have.
Awesome.
All right, thank you. Okay, so Brian, we are going to jump into hopefully our last leg.
The most exciting leg.
Right, thank you. Yes, this should be the final work session, and then what I plan to do is at the next meeting, come back with clean copy and another one that'll show all the red lines, but I'll clean up all the things that are just typos or formatting errors, so it'll be easier to just track the changes, and it'll just be the material things, and I'll try to highlight all the changes, the material policy decisions that we made along the way. Today should be much shorter. Starting on section 4.1.7 is the agricultural rate. This is the first time it's actually shown up in the water policy, but you did adopt it a couple of years ago. We clarified and updated some of the criteria and expanded it so that everybody qualifies now as long as they have backflow device, including the agricultural community. That was the one change that's been done since it was formally adopted originally.
And on that one, I wonder if for clarity, if we just maybe qualified that somehow around the piped agricultural rate. Since we've now got into the bulk rate and non-potable.
Okay,
It's a very good point.
well. I'll confer with Bill and everybody on, and have it for the final version, if we can add clarification here. Did you have something in mind ahead of time or just in this
No,
section?
yeah, just as to now that we're distinguishing between the water rights and who's getting it and all of the math and staff effort that went into coming up with the rate that we charge per acre foot as opposed to piped,
Okay,
just keeping those clear. Once piped and treated, and then there's a whole host of what we haven't decided.
Maybe
Have
that's,
a temporary fix for. This is a
maybe that's a just a 4.1.8 or something, egg rate.
or
The agreement that we have, that we just signed is only for 2023.
right.
So. Not to say that we won't have something else in the future, but
I think just language that just is treated. Piped.
piped.
Yeah, I don't want to hijack this whole process to
No.
add what
No.
we've been,
Yeah.
that is the current, it's in.
There's too much uncertainty at this time.
Well, it's just all an incubate, right? So there's a lot to solve for. Before we codify it, we need to solve for it, but I think it does help us in the long run. If we just say this is the pipes.
okay,
When we talk about ag water rates as established under 4.1.7, we mean treated in pipes.
all right. System development charges didn't change. The weighting factor, the calculation, the methodology, and the background justification for the SDF didn't change. The only thing proposing is to remove the, I think this was the 1999 or 2009 SDF rates, and we're just going to reference Exhibit A or Appendix A. I think it's supposed to be Appendix A actually, so update that. Four point 2.8 talked about abandoned services right here under miscellaneous. And if you recall, I think 2 work sessions ago, we changed and modified 2.4.6, which talked about the years that we would provide credits or charges for the SDFs. And then by making that modification, we're no longer going to reference abandoned services. And that's addressed in 2.4.6. And we can go back to that if we need to. And down a service deposit. So there are some changes and proposed changes under service deposits. These are the deposits that we take for new customers, predominantly on the residential side. And so what we currently do is we have in the policy approximately 2 months usage, which equals $225. So that's what we would charge for a residential deposit. Or they can provide from another utility 12 months of good payment history. And then the third option that we have is that we will do a quick credit check through Experian, which gives us a score. It was 580, and we're proposing that that needs to be increased. There's a small fee associated with the Experian report. We do a lot of these, so it's about $500 a month. And so one idea is that we get away from using that credit reference. One, for the expense to the district, and two is that it's basically a moment in time, their credit history, you know, they calculate that out. It's one person that we require per household to give us that report. And so that can cause, we'll only pay for one, I'll put it that way. So if you have a housemate and mine fails, and then we go on to the next one, we don't pay for that one. So that's kind of an issue. But further than that is that we end up doing a lot of work to go through that process, and then either take a deposit because they didn't do it or didn't have a high enough score. And so I would like to propose that we just have the first two options for doing deposits, which would be a cash deposit if you don't have any credit history, or history with another utility for the prior 12 months. It also, the other part, which comes up a little bit later down here, is the refund of deposits. Right now in our policy, after 18 months, we are supposed to run a report, do an internal credit, which is subject to a little bit of interpretation on if you've had any NSF check or payment withdrawn in the prior 12 months. I would like to just say if they request it and we haven't had any NSFs for either 18 months or 12 months, that we would just return the deposit. So in some ways, we'd make that easier instead of having this criteria. We're just going to say, as long as you paid your bill on time for the prior 12 months, we'll give you your deposit back. And it would just be a little bit simpler process. If people don't request it, we can periodically go through as we're dealing with accounts. We'll always return their deposit at the end of their service. And then I will also want to make sure that we remove any reference to interest, because we currently don't pay interest on those accounts. So I'm open to ideas or discussions on this. It is a lot of work. We do use those deposits mainly for closing out the account. On your last bill, that's where we would apply your deposit to. During COVID, some other PUDs applied all of their deposits that they had. And we thought about that, but we do have a lot of people at the end that we need that deposit money there. So I hate to say it, but it's the same customers that we end up turning on and off on disconnections. Those are the people that we would want to have a deposit. And it does give us the ability to down a little bit further for unusual or exceptional cases to require a higher deposit. If we have a history of a customer that hasn't been paying and they have large water bills. We had one commercial account that was open and then closed that we were very worried about. We told them that we're going to require a larger deposit just to get their water service turned back on, because their bills for 1 month during the summer were thousands of dollars. So that's a lot of background and history on all of the deposits. But and then on commercial, we also require a deposit that's usually set on what we think that their business needs are. So it would be higher than the $225, but it's just their monthly activity. So, but a large user, we're not close to the big users that we know about.
So backing up, your proposal would be to, you either have the letter of credit from another utility or
the
a
200
history with us.
and or $225. Yeah, we
Okay.
just won't do the Experian check.
Okay. I'm fine with that.
Yeah, that's fine.
Does it matter what utility you get that information from? You
No.
don't care?
No, the only people that are going to be is if you don't have a utility bill, you're going to be not being able to use your credit history from,
Right.
say I didn't have a utility bill from anyone in my name. So that's the people that would be required to put up $225 basically. So young people, I'll say it that way, maybe somebody that's recently separated that might not have credit history. So that's kind of the downside to it. And we can have Experian. It's like I said, we pay them about, I think it's $2.34 a background check or a credit history check for, it's pretty basic on what we get. And so it doesn't always lead us to a good result, but we do so many of them, it's about $500 a month. I know that, so.
That's a big expense. Like I see you go through the vouchers every month and.
Yeah,
So
I'm not sure how much it's adding on security. That's what is. I'm saying this, but the burden then would be on a person that has zero history renting or has a utility. The other way, I guess we could open that up. So it's, I mean, everybody has a cell phone now. I mean, we could use a cell phone history as long as you've got 12 months of any type of bill in your name. I mean, that would be one thing. We could look at other things. Usually we go to Cascade Gas or Puget Sound Energy or another water district or city, but we could expand the history check to other vendors.
Yeah,
I would.
I would be in favor of that. I mean, they are pretty stringent when it comes to running credit and stuff.
Yeah.
before-
So that would work.
Yeah.
Okay, I will take that and you can continue to ponder that, come up with ideas, but then we'll bring that back as a proposal in the final draft.
And then are we going from 18 months to 12 months on the refund or of deposits?
We can do that. The thought, I guess, was that since we're looking at 12 months history, we could make a determination after 12 months. That's 6 billings.
Okay.
I think the important thing would be is to have no late fees, no NSF fees, or any other late payments. So in the past, we were doing a longer period of time, but we would allow 1 or 2 NSFs or late payments, and I think it needs to be good credit history. So with auto pay, you know, we can make sure that theirs are done. So I'll change that to 12. Right?
And how would a customer make that formal request? Is that
They,
by coming in person?
well, currently it's on us to run a report and then say all these people are eligible, and then we go start looking at them. This would just be on the customer to request it. But also we could be, one thought is just as we're going through accounts that this would be looking at it and then saying it. So I was looking through the AR balance. We have some deposits that have been there forever. And so I know it's hit and miss on which way it's happening right now. So, but I would put the onus on them to request it. They would know that up front. We can add that to the application form.
Does the heat moratorium shut off impact the return of deposits or anything like that? Like, that's another wrinkle in this, right?
Yeah.
Well, I guess that would be, you wouldn't shut them off because it was non-payment, so the non-payment would keep from getting the refund back anyway.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So that's fine.
And I'll say that there's some uncertainty on what fees we'll be able to charge or not
Yeah.
charge. So right now, it doesn't say that we can't charge our fees and all the associated fees, but I guess I'll leave it up to the state attorney general to formally decide that sometime in the future. Transfer of deposits, we just cleaned up the language. This had the credit score reference in it that we moved up above, and then we added a clarification that we'll transfer it as long as it's happening and we know about it up front. But oftentimes people just close out an account and we don't get the instructions that they're moving to another location within our service area. So it happens in 2 separate transactions. We'll do it as long as we know or haven't already started the process on one, but hopefully we will inform people that, you know, if you're moving to a new location within our service area, we can transfer the information or transfer the deposit, sorry. Again, unusual or exceptional. This is the one example I know of where we were asked to turn water back on and we asked for a larger deposit just to get them to turn on the water. So, but that's on an exception basis. Refunds. Let's see. Clarify on when the refunds were done. And before I had here, And I mentioned it in the cover memo was, we're gonna hold overpayment refunds. So I put it here mistakenly, and I removed it and gonna move it up to the billing section now. But it has to do with just an overpayment for any reason by a customer. We are going to hold that money or those funds until we're sure that it isn't some sort of fraud. So one common thing, you pay and then ask for an immediate refund, and before you pay on a credit card and we issue a refund check, and then you withdraw your payment on your credit card. So we're going to hold the funds until the funds have actually closed through the bank, so we know that the funds are actually ours before we'll issue a refund. It should be less than 14 days. I only had one gentleman that called us out on it and said it wasn't in our policy, and I said, you're right, but we're also having more fraud than we've ever had, so we need to be extra careful. So we're doing that. So I'm adding that into the section here under 3.54, which I'll jump up to in a minute, but I had it here. Unpaid bills, that's it. Short section today. Not a lot of poly discussions other than the deposits. I will go back, since we've got just a little bit more time, to 2.6, which were things that we talked about. Here. So earlier discussions about standpipes, water withdrawals for agricultural application. We did go back, and these were those sponsored standpipes that had community use and had one sponsor that was responsible for the billing. Since that time, we've confirmed that all of these have been removed and no longer in service, so it's no longer necessary. So we pulled out 2.6. And then as part of 2.7, we had temporary water services. We've changed some of the language here and verbiage. But then as part of this discussion, we got into 2.7.2, which is seasonal water services, which again was set up by resolution and was adopted and formally put into the water policy manual. These were special mobile tanks or water services that we had certain customers, we think hydro seeders in the past, that required or asked for this service. Our common experience with this is it's no longer in service or necessary, so we are going to pull that out. And we talked about it earlier, but needed to confirm that. We've since confirmed it. And then this next section, 2.7.3, temporary water services, was part of that earlier discussion. This is in resolution 1511. And so we think that we'll leave this in the water policy manual. I don't know of any recent experience that we've had with it. So at some point in the future, we might be able to remove that one too.
Does it need to reference relatives?
Anyone here experienced with that in the past, the real life ones? Or did it? Yeah.
It's just talking about an EDU, right?
Yeah. Well, I think this would even be unofficial ADU, like a temporary, just locating an RV or something, and then on that. I'll go to the resolution. We might have, if we change that, we'd have to change the resolution or update the resolution. 1511. I can double check.
Yeah, this one, it talks about temporary mobile home for relatives, but then later on it talks about 2 dwellings.
Yeah,
It's a bunch of stuff in there that I don't know.
it expanded, I think.
This situation, we're seeing it, we have the ADU policy, but in the other section, we allow an ADU off the same service. I don't.
So was it a one, one-off situation.
I think we should leave it as part of our history.
Bad.
This was really important to somebody, obviously, in the 1511,
90, so
Resolution.
1990.
90.
yeah.
Well, why don't you look at it again, because I mean, we addressed the ADUs.
Yeah.
Why don't we consider?
I think that was the only item on that whole resolution, so maybe we can,
Oh, is it?
I
Okay.
think so. I'll double check that. I can't look at it.
What does the ADU one say? The ADU section, is
It says that we allow them, if they're allowed by the county,
it's just short, just like that?
you can use it basically, and that's the gist of it. It says you can use the same service. For an ADU, you don't have to have a second service.
Do we specify the size? We don't get into that. Okay.
No, that would be based on plumbing.
So based on-
They needed to update for the fixtures.
Right.
Or anything else. Yeah, that would have to be.
Okay, so it's just calculated then, as far as the size, if they need a 3/4.
Yeah. If a residential building application, and they would go through that process.
Okay.
Resize the meter.
Like, that's more relevant now, right? Because now there's gonna be that state law that allows ADUs on everybody's property. We're gonna reference that more than this.
Yeah.
Well, this is very focused on temporary
Short
too,
term, yeah.
short term. And as soon as no one's living there, temporary dwelling, the variant, allows for 2 dwellings on 1 meter service will no longer be allowed.
Like, if somebody was
So-
parking
You're
in
gonna go put
RV
a
on.
service in and then.
And then
Pull it
take
out.
it out.
Yeah.
They gotta tell you when they leave, though.
It never does.
Yeah, I think.
That
this
would be my
kind
concern. It causes more problems than,
Yeah. Okay, we'll double check that one before the next meeting and see if it contradicts anything else, or if we can maybe just get rid of this one too. And I'll look at the ADU section of the bill maybe, and we can look and see if we're. So I can easily stop right here, answer any other questions or thoughts. If there's other items that you've been thinking about or come up during the prior discussions. Otherwise, like I said, the plan would be to come back at the next meeting for a formal adoption, get it one clean copy and one that's cleaner, so it's easier to just see the changes and not any of the formatting or text errors or anything like that. And then I could send that to you out earlier, and then you'd have more time to review it than just a normal, well, we're 2 weeks away, but we'll get it to you as soon as I can. Does that work for everybody?
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right, thank you. Let's stop right there then.
All right. So next up, going to new business, and Mike, are you presenting?
Yeah. Not a presentation so much as just an outline.
Surplus of vehicles at end of economic life.
Yeah, we have a surplus of vehicles that we held on to for the last few years during the COVID time, because we had a lot of people driving in single vehicles. So we're riding together, but now that has passed. We have quite a number of vehicles that we can start surplusing. That are just run out of space, honestly, and have excess of stuff we don't need. Upon reviewing some of the fleet, we have 11 vehicles that are over 30 years old, 18 that are over 20 years old, 15 that are over 15 years old, and 18 that are over 10 years old. But the fleet's a little aged, and some of these ones that are just surplus and sitting along the fence, we're gonna get rid of. And then we have 5 new pickups that showed up this year that people are moving into right now. Next couple of months, we should have those swapped over. And the 5 that those are replacing, we'll be auctioning off and trying to recoup a lot of our investments, because those were purchased at a better price. So the 5 we're looking to surplus right now are pretty aged. It's just they will want the auction.
All right, any questions? Entertain a motion.
Motion to authorize the general manager to surplus fixed asset number 209, 210, 220, 221, 226, and 239 and sell at auction.
Second.
Motion is second, all in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye, opposed. All right, so that passes.
Thank you.
Mhm.
Thank you. All right, Mark, you are up with construction administration modification.
All right, thank you. So, yeah, we're pretty exciting. There's some work happening out on the property today. The contract that we're seeking approval for, we brought this, well, I mentioned it during the approval of the construction contract is for construction administration. Most of it is our architect who will support us on the, RFIs and submittals and those sorts of things. And then there are specialty work along with that that we're seeking approval for. But when we went through when we were approving the construction contract, I think there were some questions about the budget and just the history on the project. And I'd like to try to go through that real quickly if I can. In the materials, we included a administration building budget spending summary. And that one, I think in the original packet was dated August or July 28th. I think, do you have an updated?
It should have been
August
updated,
1st?
yeah.
Of August 1st,
Yeah, okay, they're not substantially different, but they are a little bit different. What's
Good. Nick, do you want to scroll down to the last attachment? There you go. It's for Sam and Kevin. So they can read it.
So really starting in 2017, we had just some preliminary, well, let me describe this sheet first. I'm just going to work from the top down. And so the top couple of rows there are spending per year to date. And so in 2017, we had a little bit of preliminary studies and stuff. Then in 2018, we set aside, we planned for budget in our 19 budget to have $10,500,000 in there, and that was broken up into three different kind of components in our capital plan. One was the feasibility study. The second was a design and real estate, and then the third part was construction. And that was really our best guess as far as the number went for construction and budgeting. But after we got after we started going through the design in 2020, I'm sorry, in 2019, we were able to formalize a better budget, and that was $20,000. And so in 2019, we were conducting $20 million. We were conducting our feasibility study, which was basically assessing kind of what the growth would be of the district and staff and our needs for over the next, 20 years. So we were doing staff projections, space projections, and what our building needs would be. So based on that, we had a better idea of how large of a facility we needed, what kind of existing facilities we have that could be, help support the building. So then we put together a $20 million budget for 2020. And so that was really kind of a reset. We rebuilt the $10,500,000, and then we made a comprehensive budget of 20 million. In 2020, we also looked at conducting property studies about where to site the building here, Cedar Woolley, other industrial places up at the port. So we conducted that study, and we did a little bit of design during that year as well. So then we were going into the 2021. In 2020, we spent a total of $304,000, combining that with the $141,000 in 2019. We subtracted that out of the the project budget moving forward. So then going into 2020. These lines are wrong here, 2021, we took out basically 500,000 to account for the project spending already. So the kind of stayed the same. In 2020, our inflation rate was about 1 to 2%. So then in 2021, when we were doing the design, we had this, in the beginning of the year, we had a really nice design put together that we, took, not that we don't have a nice design still, but we were gonna locate the building on the south half of our existing property. And there was a road that was gonna, cut the existing building in two, separate the two properties so that we could peel off the north property, keep the south, and confine everything to our building there. Our areas there, and it included a new warehouse, kind of an annex building. It included a truck wash and a decant facility for our Vector trucks. It had a lot of bells and whistles, but as inflation was going up, we were trying to chase our project. I guess we were trying to cut the cost and keep it within budget, and it was just moving so quickly that we had to kind of land on something. And so what ended up doing is we cut 10,000 square feet out of the new building. We reduced it from 33,000 square feet to 22,700 square feet. We eliminated the decant facility and the truck wash. We eliminated the annex, and we reduced, we moved the access road to the north part where we wouldn't have to bisect the building. And then we also made some adjustments to what we were doing on the inside of the existing building for crews. And so we landed on, so that was the concept that we arranged, to move forward with, understanding that, the inflation is now going at 10%, and we're not sure if we're gonna be able to get all this in, even at our old budget number. So in 2022, when 2022, when inflation was running at about 9 or 10%, we reset the budget at 20 million. So going into 2022, everything still seemed as if it were on track. And we reduced our project to stay within our original $20 million budget. We had a little over $1.3 million in spending, and that was taken out of our overall project budget of 20 million. And our budget moving forward, going into 2022 rather, was 18,750,000. So basically, we started with 20 million. What we spent, we've peeled off of that budget. To stay within that budget up to 2021, we were cutting, even 2022, we were cutting size and scope of the building to stay within it. When we hit 2022 budget season in the fall of 2022, when we hit 2023 budget season, inflation was at 10%. And we recognized that we couldn't keep cutting in order to have a building and meet our budget. So we reset the budget at 20 million going into 2023 and keeping that forward to 2024. I hope that makes sense. But so I don't know if you have any questions on that. The year-to-date spending at the top, those are all the amounts that we had spent year-to-date. The existing remaining contract liabilities, those are contracts that we still think we can work on. Part of that, I think there's like 2,500 for a certification of the building elevation to make sure we're out of the floodplain. We have some fiber optic design in there, and then there's 27,000 left on Driftmeyer's remaining design contract that he hasn't billed for, that hasn't been billed for. Then moving forward, we have the table below is kind of a summary by work order. The WAT 2556 is initiation. That was all the, preliminary work, the alternative analysis, appraisals, the market study, the feasibility study, getting those numbers. The design includes permit, which I don't know if you recall, we had the street improvements that we needed to pay for from the city of Mount Vernon, 205,000, 206,000 for street improvements. That is separate from our building permit. And then there are allowed mostly design fees in that to go with that. Those in that phase. And now that we've bid the project and we've awarded the contract, we're moving to the construction phase of the project. And we are anticipating 19,516,000 to spend during this phase. George, is there anything you want to clear up my budget discussion?
I understand it completely because you and I worked on it together, but that's different.
I should have made these columns closer because I can't follow it across 2021, 2022.
Just need a ruler.
Yeah, right.
No, I really appreciate this. I'm very visual and spreadsheet oriented is my world. So this is very helpful and provides a lot of clarity and tells a better story of what has happened, what the plan is moving forward, and thank you for that.
Yeah, and I think, in here we have contingencies, and obviously the balance to the future remodel. We're hopeful that we don't go deep into our project contingency of 19 million so that we can move that forward. I think there are other things that we have discussed and looked at. The generator, for instance, for 500,000, the generator that's specified in the new building to meet all the current codes is a 650 kW generator, which is bigger than the one that we have up at the water treatment plant right now, which is a lot of power. So it assumes that everything's turned on all at once, all at the same time. And we already in the new building, we already have a rooftop generators, a separate one, smaller unit, specifically to maintain power to the servers. So those are taken care of. The alternate, this other generator that we're gonna buy or repurpose is just to keep the lights on in the building and telephones on, etc. We already have a generator that works just fine for this building. We can hauling that over is one option. Maybe if the construction and timing comes together for the new generator of the water treatment plant, maybe we can pull that one down. So there might be some weight savings that we can get there.
And the rooftop generator you talked about, that's already a part of the construction contract,
yeah,
right?
it's already the 16th. Yeah.
I think the big thing here is a few years ago, we were cutting things and moving things around to try and stay in that $20 million budget. And so now entering construction, there's just one item that's kind of in flux, and that's that remodel price. That's a number lower than we originally thought was going to be in the remodel. But again, we're still trying to stay within the new budget that we have, which is 22.159 million. So, like Mark said, hopefully we get through a lot of these things, and at the end of it, we find we have some money for the remodel and we can just do what we need to do. Or there can be some conversation about, can we get, do we increase the budget or repurpose something else or take it out of some other fund? So
the sale of the property isn't, it's a little
Right.
murky as to whether the sale of the property was intended to be included in these numbers or not.
they're not right now.
So
All right,
we're
any other
looking for
questions?
Yeah, so we're just gonna go down this list of expenses over the next year or 18 months and hopefully just kind of track it with this spreadsheet.
Yeah, the contractor is shooting for basically a 12-month schedule. Which would be nice.
That would be nice.
A long month, 12 months. Yeah, they're gonna hit it.
So we're looking for a motion to authorize the general manager to execute task order modification number 005 with Driftmeyer Architects in the amount of $497,880 for construction administration services related to the PUD campus replacement administration building.
So moved.
My second.
Motion is second, all in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. All right, so that concludes the new business section. We have a couple informational items, recent news article. And our usual Judy Reservoir data report. Any commissioner comments this evening?
I'm excited to get to go to see the desal plant out at Guaymas Island next Friday, so looking forward to that and get to speak with some contractors or learn more from contractors I currently work with at Anacortes, James from QCC, so it'll be exciting to see what he's working on with us versus what he does at Anacortes.
Right,
Then for me.
nothing. I have nothing, so with that. We will adjourn at 5:16.